In our culture, menopause gets a really bad rap. I feel like everything that you hear about menopause is horrible. Weight gain, hair loss, lethargy, all of these terrible things. But I found myself very empowered when I read Christiane Northrup's book called The Wisdom of Menopause. She offered some really fascinating insights about how this significant life change is actually very empowering. And working with patients over the years through their menopausal experience, I feel like I've gleaned a lot of wisdom myself to utilize, but also I have been able to, I feel like, have a very positive experience with it. So the first thing that I notice with menopause is it offers a new relationship with time. In my experience, I realized that the time ahead of me is probably similar to the time behind me. We are at middle age. And with that, it gives a new preciousness to time in terms of maybe even an urgency. What do I want to do with my time? For a lot of women, there is this idea, at least historically, about a crone or a wise woman who is able to share her wisdom with younger people. In East Asian medicine philosophy, that feels like a very significant emphasis, is the recognition that beauty is something that we carry all through our lives. In fact, in some ways, we become more beautiful through our wisdom and through our spirit as we get older. Although our classic fertility years are complete, we have new opportunities to share what we have gleaned throughout our lives. In my experience working with women through menopause, I took a cold, hard look at who was coming in and how the year 60 can look one way for one person and completely different for another. In my experience, it offered an opportunity and an inspiration to do more physical movement, as the people, as they were 60 who moved, had far more physiological dynamics. They were physically healthier. They inspired 60 to look amazing. If I could look like that at 60, that doesn't seem terrifying at all. But it's really up to us how we decide to proceed with our lives, how we decide to take that in, and to a certain extent, our expectations of how we wish to be as we get older, how much we have embraced ourselves, which is also how menopause can be very empowering. Now, one of the insights that Christiane Northrup offered that I found really powerful was this. She called it a requirement that we grieve all of the things that we could have been. So, sometimes I contemplate my own life, and maybe I could have had a job in corporate America, or I could have gone back to school to be a lawyer. But I also know at 50 now, I'm probably not going to go back to school. I'm probably not going to have a career in corporate America. And so all of those possibilities that could have been and are now in the rearview mirror are necessary to grieve. For a lot of women, children leaving the house is also correspondent with menopause. So our large creative effort in terms of how we give ourselves creatively to raising children, that part of our life is not over, but the vast majority of the bulk of the responsibility is now out of our hands, right? Children are leaving the home. Now, in a lot of cases, that's not necessarily true. In my case, my children are still at home for quite a while yet. But with menopause, there is this resurgence of a different kind of creativity that is actually we're responsible for using for ourselves. So for the fertility years, most women give our creative efforts to our children or to the things that we're doing to have a family, etc. But once we hit menopause with the children leaving the home, we actually get this resurgence of creativity for ourselves. And so how do we want to be creative in the last parts of our lives or over the next 40 or so years? For some women, it's giving back. It's taking all of the things that we've learned throughout our pre-fertility years and our fertility years and amalgamizing them in a way that we can share with other people. For some people, it's worth investigating or contemplating what it was that you used to do before you had children. What did you used to enjoy? For some people, they get a resurgence of creativity and exploration of art, be it basket weaving. Actually, one of my patients is doing basket weaving. She's studying colors. For some women, it's also being more supportive of their grandchildren, spending time with their grandchildren and giving back to their families creatively through relationships with their grandchildren. Some people start a new business, they take on a new hobby, the hobby evolves into something else. Some women write a book or do go back to school, or volunteering in ways that are meaningful. So I like to think of menopause not as an ending, but as a new beginning, or an ending and a new beginning. My wish is that we can start to see menopause as a powerful, empowering time of life in which we get to be more fully ourselves and more fully self-expressed. Menopause reminds us that time is precious. And what is it that we want to do with our time? When we go through the grief of all of the things that we could have been, that actually offers up and opens up a space for what it is that we want to be doing, that will make us feel more fully alive now. Another thing that Christiane Northrup talked about in her book, The Wisdom of Menopause, that really struck me was until the last 100 or 200 years, when women reach this time of menopause, it was typically the end of life. But as we are evolving, as we are growing, as life expectancy changes, it's a vulnerable time, because a lot of times if women haven't figured out how they want to contribute or what they want their next creative project to be, beyond raising children and beyond being householders, they become vulnerable to hormone-related cancers. So breast cancer, surges, ovarian cancer, hormone-related cancers rise about the time of menopause. But if we can properly grieve and get through that, then we have this incredible influx of creative energy that is really ours to use however it is that we wish. As Northrup was talking in her book, she also emphasized how for most of millennia, women were very dependent upon being in a relationship with a man for safety and security, and in that regard would potentially put up with whatever they had to put up with. They would be copacetic to keep the peace and to ensure safety of themselves and their children primarily. But once children leave the home, this new kind of woman kind of comes out, and I have walked women I work with through this process, which is that the poor men that we're with don't really know what happened, because almost overnight with these hormone changes, we potentially become very different women, different people, because we don't have the same need for safety and security, because our children are out of the house and our large responsibility is complete. We don't have to be so copacetic to our true needs, which has just been a survival mechanism, a safety catch, so that everything can happen, as peacefully as possible. But with this hormone fluctuation happens so subconsciously, we don't necessarily understand how our behavior might impact our partners. And so it would also behoove men to have a better sense, I think, of how to walk through menopause with their spouses if they want to stay married, because needs change, and invariably women can become very different than they were. And my distinct impression is, if a marriage has survived all these years already, generally speaking, the men in our lives are going to want to support us in whatever it is that we want to express ourselves newly. And if they can be supportive in our feeling empowered and pursuing our creativity in this new way, it actually has the potential to enrich the relationship even to a deeper level. So menopause is a really empowering time, and I hope that other people can embrace, or my hope is that you can embrace the benefits and the sense of empowerment and the blessings and the gifts that come with this new creativity and being more fully yourselves. Have you experienced menopause yourself? Does your experience correspond with what I'm talking about here? Is this changing your impressions of menopause in any positive way? Please share your empowering self-expression experiences and menopause down below. Thank you. What have you discovered about menopause for yourself? And if you haven't reached it yet, what do you look forward to about menopause now that you have a better understanding? Tell me what you look forward to most about menopause. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for your attention and time. I would love to connect with you if you felt like commenting about your experience, if you try any of these things that I offer. I hope that this information has helped and enriched your life. And if you are inspired to share it with others, I would be grateful. From my wise heart to yours, thank you.